Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Student Bites with the Spanish Vibe. Here we review various resources across reading, writing, listening, and speaking competencies to help you with your Spanish. All right. Today, let's look at the website hablacultura.com. That's HABLACULTURA punto or .com. Now, this is one of my favorite websites because it has so much content to offer. They have articles that encompasses debates, opinion pieces, and general information. They have multimedia with a lot of videos in Spanish across levels A1 to C1 and podcasts from the very popular magazine Punto y Coma, Viajar a España, which has places to travel in Spain and where to study Spanish. We'll be looking at this more closely in a few minutes. You can subscribe to their newsletter. Let me just show you that. And then they have a blog that you can look at. It has a lot of very interesting articles about grammar and vocab in Spanish, written in a very engaging way. All right, we'll look at this in more detail soon. Let's start with the textos section. So you can see that the textos section has a number of different fields or different topics, including politics, technology, music, there's curiosities, customs, cinema in Spanish, science and ecology, and you have debates. Now, the debate section is one of my favorites because you can really engage students with the debates that they have on here. It starts from from level A2, that's what Nivelle means, and it goes all the way to upper intermediate or the B2 level. So each topic, let me open up one for you. Each topic is presented in 3 sections. The first paragraph is the introduction, and then you have points in favor of the topic and some against. Now, what I generally like to do with my students is read through the entire topic and then give them some time to prepare and immediately come out with an opinion, whether they are in favor or against a particular topic. Now, reading through the entire article, gives them a chance to assimilate the new vocabulary that we come across while going through the text. Right? There's also an audio section. What I usually do is get them to listen to the audio section after reading the text if they are at the A2 level. And for students at the B level, so that's B1 or B2, I get them to listen to the audio to see how much they're able to pick up or comprehend from the audio. And then we read through it for the vocabulary. There's also a glossary section that comes up. So this is very useful while you're going through the article, because not only does it give you the meaning, but what's more important here is the meaning in context. All right. So this is a very nice way to get students to practice their speaking, reading, and listening skills with one activity. There are loads of interesting topics. So this topic is about wind energy, but you will also see topics about, reducing the use of plastics, asking for permission to publish people's photographs on social media, unisex toys, protests, and so much more. It gets more and more interesting as you progress through the different topics. So this is something that I usually do at the beginning of the A2 level or the end of the A1 level, even though students may not always be able to phrase a complete sentence or to be able to express everything they want to, I still like them to read through it and see if they can at least use the vocabulary, all right, in 1 or 2 points of their own, of course, with quite a bit of assistance. All right, so that wraps up the debate section. LA para Jóvenes is a very nice section for A1 students, for beginner students. I generally start with this section towards the end of the A1 level because they have enough vocabulary by then to work through these different sections. For example, one topic that I generally do with my students is deportes extremos, extreme sports, about skateboarding and longboarding, because this talks about the daily routine of a skateboard enthusiast. So this includes regular verbs, irregular verbs, and reflexive verbs in one text. So they really begin to understand how Spanish is used in context after they've used it in individual lessons where they've picked up just the grammar. It's nice to see all the grammar coming together in this text. They understand how to talk about their own daily routine, how to talk about a third person's daily routine through this article. So generally after this article, I get them to either pretend that they're a celebrity or a third person and talk about a daily routine from that perspective, or to just talk about their own daily routine. It's quite fun to do. And this has an audio section as well, which could be a little tricky for students at the A1 level, but it's still a good idea to listen to so that they pick up the sounds and rhythm of the language. All right. There are lots of other topics with LA para jóvenes. For instance, generally after doing the Estar chapter is when we go to Paraísos Naturales, because this describes different places across Spain and Latin America. And they use a lot of estar, tener, hay, ser, so it brings everything together. And it's a nice way to get them to discover new places across Spain and Latin America. So as you've guessed, after this activity, we usually try and get the students to include more places, to research more places and come and present it in class. All right. Then, for more advanced students, students at the B1, B2, and sometimes C1 levels, we go through the other texts that are on here, which are also very, very interesting. For instance, Política y Sociedad. There are topics like bullying at school levels, there's cyberbullying, and then we've also done La Ruta de la Muerte. Then there is revolution, women's revolution, and a lot of topics that are also related to history. This is something that you'd definitely like to check out. The vocabulary level is high, the text quality, the narration style is excellent. They have accompanying audios and glossaries. Very, very interesting. Now, on to the multimedia section. There are two parts to this section. The podcast from the famous magazine Punto y Coma, which is an excellent resource for students learning Spanish, something we'll review very soon. And videos in Spanish. Let's start with videos in Spanish. These videos are also classified by level. That means you will find videos for the A1, A2, B1, and B2 levels. Now, these are short videos, about 4 or 5 minutes in length, sometimes 7 minutes, dealing with different topics. Let's look at a few from Nivel A1 or the A1 level. There's family, there's greetings and goodbyes, there's introducing yourself, nationalities, and then verbs and vocab. Now, this is something that I usually do once they are a little more familiar with the topics, because these videos have a lot of dialogues that could be a little challenging for very basic or A1 level students to comprehend straight away. So these are something that I do as part of revision towards the end of A1. But from the A2, B1, and B2 levels, I do it as and when we do these particular topics. All right. So, for example, you can see deportes extremos. This is very similar to the article we just read. So you can go through this section a little bit, see if there are more videos corresponding to the text, and play it immediately after. That's also a really nice way to go. But I usually prefer doing it a little after they've learned the topic and practiced speaking and grammar a little bit, so that they're able to comprehend it better. Because listening is one of the hardest skills to develop. All right, this also has a podcast section that you can check out. There are a bunch of interviews in this section, and I generally find that these are most suited to intermediate students. So I would say end of B1, beginning or midway through B2. That's the best time to start introducing them to this, but then, of course, it depends on the student's level. Now, Viajar a España, travel to Spain, has two sections: lugares, places donde estudiar español, where you could study Spanish. I found this very, very interesting. So let's start with the study Spanish section. They have a bunch of regions or places that you can study Spanish at. So although I've not really contacted any of these places, it's pretty nice. And the information is updated, so you can contact these regions through their email IDs, get on their website, or try and get them on by phone. All right, so there are loads of places that you can research, check out what programs they have, check out what they offer students, whether they have scholarships or any other tie-ups. Now, lugares. So far, there's one post on this. It's a really enjoyable post. I've read this. So this is about La Alhambra de Granada, a short text about it. This mostly has the past tense. So this is something that you can get your students to read through, and then as a project or a group activity or even a one-on-one activity, get them to research another place that they would like to travel to or they would recommend to someone, and write a similar article. Then there's the newsletter where you can subscribe to the posts on the website, and then there is the blog. They have really interesting articles on the blog as well. So from what I see, most of these deal with vocabulary and grammar topics. And it's very, very interesting because it's not your traditional grammar and conjugations and structure. There's a lot of reference to it, there's a lot of context and why it is said a certain way. If there's a little anecdote or a little background, historical background to it, that's explained as well. So it's really worth looking at. And maybe you can even bring this up in class and have a discussion about why sometimes some words are borrowed from different languages. So you could talk about why certain words sound a certain way, like more Arabic or more Latin or more Italian. So these are some things that you could do, or you could just recommend that your students read it. That works as well. So one thing about Hablacultura is it shares a publisher with the very, very popular magazine, Punto y Coma. You will find a section called Editoriales PYC or Editorials PYC. That's the magazine, Punto y Coma, that has interesting articles from past issues. There are a couple of debates as well from that magazine on this website. So you could check these out. One that I really like doing is Guerra Civil Española. I would love for my students to understand what went on during the Civil War, because when you learn a language, it's a good idea to learn a little bit of culture and history as well. So there are loads of articles about culture and customs as well. So that's really, really worth doing if you have like a special class dedicated to culture, or you would like your students to know about the culture of Spanish-speaking countries. All right. There are also very interesting articles, or there's one article about the DELE and the CLE exam. So what it is, who gives it, how is it marked, who's it for. So a lot of students have these questions, and it's a good idea to go through the information. It's good info, and you can ask them to either read it themselves if they're at a slightly higher level. Here it says from level B, or you could go through it and you have enough info to be able to clear any queries. All right, I think that's pretty much it. They have loads and loads of sections and articles. You'll have a fun time going through all of this. If you're a tutor, if you're a student, there is so much to read about. Okay. I hope you found this review useful. If you didn't know about Hablacultura, I hope this helps you discover a lot of content that you can help your students with. Any questions, any queries, anything you want to talk about, any comments, please get in touch. I'd be happy to chat about this. Have a lovely evening and stay tuned for the next episode.